from CBS Sports.
High drive, center field, hit the wall, grand slam. This is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Welcome into our first live mock draft stream of the year. This time, a 12-team head-to-head points dynasty startup draft. That was a lot. This is Fantasy Baseball Today, a YouTube exclusive. Thanks as always for joining us here on the channel. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by the one, the only Scott White, and we've got a fun draft set up here. Scotty, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I just hopped off my panel on PitchCon that the folks at Pitcher List put together. So you know, you're getting the second helping. You're getting my you're getting the second bit of me here, but we'll power through. This should be fun.
What'd you talk about on PitchCon?
ADP. Yeah,
right.
But a lot of the players I've talked about recently on our podcast, as a matter of fact, you know, Willy Adames, Luke Voigt.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had to be Luke Voigt, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's no chance you were passing
Jazz
up.
Chisholm.
I'm
Yeah,
talking about Luke Voigt there.
sure.
And we are not alone. Joining us today, one of the very best fantasy baseball dynasty minds in the industry. You can find all of his writing and rankings over at Baseball Prospectus. It is Jesse Roche. What's going on, Jesse?
Hey fellas, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to do a dynasty mock. This is the time of the year to be mocking and drafting. It's a great time.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we're going to be doing mock drafts basically every week leading up to the season. So that's something that we're going to start doing extra here as YouTube exclusives. That's exactly why we're here. So we'll do various formats. We'll do dynasty. We'll do head-to-head points, head-to-head categories, roto leagues, 12-team, 15-team. We're going to jump all around, and we're going to bring you a bunch of live streams. So that's the plan here for the off season, in addition to all of the podcasts that we are doing as well. Anyway, I wanted to remind everyone before we jump in, make sure you follow Jesse on Twitter. It is at JARoche6, JAROCHE6. Such a valuable follow on Twitter. In season, every morning, posts a sheet with the best minor league performers from the night before. I'm telling you, my routine every day in season was wake up, check Jesse's Twitter. First thing I did every morning, because it's tough. Admittedly, I mean, to look through every single minor league box score and search out the top prospects in baseball, it is such a valuable tool. So make sure you go follow Jesse on Twitter. Again, JARoche6 is where you can find him. Today's draft, just quickly preview.
I just want to mention, so this is my first chance meeting Jesse face to face, but I've been playing with him in a couple dynasty type
Screen to
leagues
screen.
myself. Yeah, screen to screen, right? Tough trader is my perception of Jesse. No, which I don't mean as a criticism necessarily. I say it with complete respect. Drives a hard bargain. So, you know, it'll be fun to see how he approaches the draft to kind of get his head.
But I get trades done.
Yeah, we've made trades before. Made trades.
It's not too hard of a
I've also
bargain.
left grumbling at what you've offered me before. But no, we've definitely made trades before.
All right, Jesse, after we do this mock draft, I'm going to hop in your DMs. You help me out, figure out how to trade with Scott. So in his dynasty league, maybe I can, finagle him a little bit and get some players out of him there, because I need all the help that I can get. This is a 12-team head-to-head points dynasty startup. As I mentioned, 1 catcher, 3 outfielders, no middle or corner infielder, 5 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, and we're drafting as if it's a real dynasty team, and you can keep as many players for as long as you want. Each team must draft at least 5 prospects. Jesse has the 3rd overall pick. Scott has the 7th overall pick. I have the 12th pick. That's now 3 drafts in a row that I have the last pick of the draft. So, Scott, I'm watching you, buddy. We got to figure this out. Last pick of the draft. I'm not down with this.
Randomizer.
Others participating in this draft: RJ White, excuse me if I mispronounce your name, Corey Pieper, John Russell Fenton, Nick Retrieve, Chris Mitchell, Timothy Ackery, Nick Mamikos, Phil Panevchek, and Daniel Preciado. And I think that just about does it, Scotty. So you want to start it up? I am the one who is currently sharing my screen, so don't steal my cue. That's all I could say. I'm going to be throwing players in the queue very early here because, admittedly, drafting a startup dynasty mock draft and hosting this thing and asking questions and keeping everything moving at the same time, I don't have a lot of faith that this is going to work out very well for my team. We'll see what happens for the rest of these guys.
I think it's going to be a challenge for sure.
All righty. RJ White, first off the board. Juan Soto, which I think even in a redraft head-to-head points league probably makes sense as the first overall pick. OBP is absolutely ridiculous. Plate discipline. Walk rate is amazing. Obviously hits a good amount of home runs. And he's super young. He's on a Hall of Fame track. Let's see if he can keep it up. And number 2 goes to Ronald Acuna. And just like that, Jesse, you were on the clock.
Yes.
What's going through your mind?
So in points leagues, I think that when you want to really focus on are obviously, hits and total bases. That's the primary thing for hitters. And at this point of the draft, if you're going to be drafting in the top 5, you should be really targeting hitting, period, in Dynasty. And in general, I like to target hitting early, period. But here, it's a little difficult. I mean, Acuna went second. That kind of like makes it a little bit more difficult. But I'm going to go maybe a little bit off script here, and I'm going to be taking Vlad because I believe that Vlad is going to be a points monster for years. And Tatis's stolen bases kind of fall a little more flat in points. So Vlad.
All right. And I think Scott would be perfectly fine with that. Scott has Vlad as his number 2 overall player in redraft this year as well. Obviously, Vlad is super young. Scott, any issue with the pick?
Nope. I think, and now Fernando Tatis just went 4th. I think these are the obvious top 4. The order would be different if it was a Roto or some other version of 5x5 scoring startup dynasty league. But these are the obvious 4 guys, franchise cornerstones, lock them in for at least the next decade players, I think. So,
yeah, if this was Roto or even head-to-head, I probably wouldn't be taking Vlad at 2. It's hard to resist that speed that someone like Tatis brings to the table at falling down to 2. Because I personally, in something like Roto or head-to-head, unless it's OBP, I prefer Tatis to Soto.
All righty, let's see what else we got going on here. We have, again, Fernando Tatis went 4th overall. Bo Bichette goes 5th. And then Trey Turner goes 6th overall, which is kind of interesting because he's getting up there in age and, he relies more on speed. He's still a really good points player. I don't think it's a bad pick by any means. And Scott, you are on the clock with the 7th overall pick. What do we got?
Yeah, so the next player up in my dynasty rankings is Kyle Tucker. But I did gear those more for Roto, where I'm assuming, 5 outfielders as opposed to the 3 we're working with here. I like that he's only 25, but I think for this format with the small hitting lineups, I'm going to go with Jose Ramirez instead. Go ahead and lock in third base early. This is his age 29 season. So, he's starting to get toward the end of his prime, but I don't think the age is enough of a downside to pass him over here.
All right. And still a fantastic points league player, 3.9 fantasy points per game last year for Jose Ramirez. Obviously, he's good regardless of format, but he makes a lot of contact. Obviously, hit some home runs, middle of that lineup. He had over 100 runs and over 100 RBI last year. I think that's so interesting because I personally was worried about Cleveland's lineup going into the season and didn't seem to matter one bit for Jose Ramirez. So he was amazing. 8th overall, we see Bryce Harper go off the board. 9th overall, we see Wander Franco go off the board here. I have 3 players in my queue. What are the chances that I will be able to draft 2 of them? I don't think they're very good. I think, actually, I don't know. They could both go with these next 2 picks. It would not surprise me one bit. All right, well, let's see what happens. Scotty, is that the right spot for Wander Franco? Dynasty is always so interesting, especially a startup dynasty, because you're weighing winning now versus looking towards the future. Does 9th overall make sense for Wander?
Yeah. Well, he's definitely in my top 10. I think you elevate him even more in this format because he has that superlative plate discipline, and you're not as worried about what the final home run total is going to be. So yeah, I think it's a great spot for him.
Yeah, I think Franco just thrives in points formats. I think he's definitely gets a massive boost because, like Scott said, the power and even the speed, right? Because I think there's an open question about how many stolen bases Franco will ultimately provide, I think those just don't matter as much. If he keeps pounding out hits, extra base hits, doesn't strike out much, walks plenty, I think that he's just going to be a points monster.
All right, let's see what happens here. Daniel Preciado is on the clock with 10 seconds left, and he takes Mookie Betts. All right, so both players that were in my queue originally are still here. Now, I got to imagine, do I want to stick with both of these guys? I don't think I'm going to take two outfielders. I don't think I'll take Luis Robert and Yordan Alvarez together. Should I be the first one to take a starting pitcher? I don't think I'm going to do that either. So I think the first pick for me is going to be Luis Robert. Even though the strikeouts have been an issue in the past, and they were in the shortened 2020 season, 2021, the contact got a lot better. Obviously, he's still super young. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if in redraft, he's like a mid-first round pick by next year. The other pick, do I want to take Rafael Devers? He's super young. He's 25 years old, and I get third base out of the way, so I don't have to worry about that. What is the pitching going to look like when it gets back to me? I'm just going to do it. I love Rafi Devers. So we'll go there. We'll go Luis Robert and Rafael Devers. Jesse, did I make the right decisions or what? Should I have taken Yordan Alvarez as one of those picks?
Well, I think so. I don't know about Alvarez, to be honest, but I would not have taken Robert this in points because, he's a massively aggressive hitter. He's not going to walk much. Of course, the whiffs and strikeouts are somewhat of a concern, but because he's so aggressive, he legitimately just is not going to be striking out as much as, players who are more passive and see more pitches. But I just don't think he's going to give you that boost that you want to see from the walks in points. And the steals just don't go as far in points leagues. But I do obviously love the talent. There's massive power and speed upside with Robert. I just don't think he's a great fit for this format.
All righty. I'm totally fine with that. Look, everyone knows that the White Sox are like my second American League team. Obviously, I got all the Yankee stuff behind me. I love Luis Robert.
No, I cannot keep up with your hierarchy of teams, Frank. Everybody does not know.
I've got the Rangers, I've got the White Sox, I've got the Yankees. It's all over the place. Anyway, after my picks, I go Luis Robert and Rafi Devers. Freddie Freeman goes off the board, Bobby Witt, and then Shohei Ohtani, which is very interesting, Scott, because we recently talked about Ohtani's value in a redraft points league, and obviously you push him down a little bit because in the weekly format, you got to choose, is he a hitter? Is he a pitcher? Obviously more often than not, most of the time, you're going to use him as a hitter. He's still super young and really good. What do you think about Ohtani, and who are you thinking about taking here with your pick?
Ohtani was next up in my dynasty rankings and had been for a while. Kind of like with Luis Robert, I feel like he's better for categories leagues, for roto leagues, than for points leagues like this one. So, if he had made it to my pick, I probably still would have taken him. I don't think it was wrong where he went, but I understand why he maybe slid a little relative to my rankings. I think I'm up here now. I was going to say, I think I'm going to be the first one to take a pitcher here, but that's actually wrong. Corbin Burns went after Shohei Ohtani. So Burns was the first pitcher off the board. And I do think I actually did a dynasty survey where I asked people on Twitter to respond with who they want most in dynasty leagues at each position. And it was between these two at starting pitcher. The number one preferred option in dynasty leagues was between Corbin Burns and the guy I just took, Walker Buehler. Buehler definitely feels like the safer of the two. Burns is the higher upside pick. What may surprise people, both are already 27 years old, which, they're not old. Clearly, if to the extent you can predict these things with pitchers, they should have a number of good years left. But they're not particularly youthful either. Shane Bieber is younger than both.
That is interesting. Yeah. So Corbin Burns and Walker Buehler, both 27 years old. Garrett Cole, the pick right after you, Scott, goes off the board. Garrett Cole, 31 years old. So it's interesting because usually in Dynasty, I don't think that we would see pitching maybe go it hasn't been aggressive so far, but maybe not as early as this, because in a points league, most people want to get pitching early. The next picks off the board after Garrett Cole, we see Ozzie Albies go and Yordan Alvarez. Jesse, you are on the clock. Walk us through.
Yes. So remember, we need to remember this is a shallower format, 12 teams, only 3 outfielders started. So for me, I really want to look for players who are just going to get me the most points per game. I'm not as concerned about injury risk, even in a dynasty league where you want to have players that last for a long time, Um, so I'm going with, I think, probably one of the best bangs for your buck per game played that you're going to find out there. He's still just 30, former best player in the game, Mike Trout. Mike Trout's a points monster if he's healthy, mind you. His health is a massive, massive concern. That's why he's being faded everywhere in dynasty leagues right now. I actually think it's an interesting time to potentially buy Mike Trout because the Angels are, in a pretty decent position. That lineup has a lot of talent now with Otani, the emergence of Jared Walsh, hopefully a healthy Anthony Rendon, and Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh are potentially going to. Hopefully, one of them actually is able to perform in the majors this year. So I think he's going to have a lot of help around him, and of course, he walks a ton and he has the massive power, and he is again probably the best hitter in baseball when healthy. So in points leagues, I will take that every single day.
Yes, 100%. I mean, we hear people talk about fading him specifically in Roto because he doesn't run that much anymore, but in points leagues, still walks quite a bit, hits a bunch of home runs, doubles, drives runs in. I mean, he is still amazing in that format. So even in a redraft points league, I think Mike Trout is worthy of a first round pick. We see him go 22nd overall here to Jesse. Then Manny Machado and Shane Bieber to finish up round 2. Starting off round 3, Brandon Woodruff and Julio Rodriguez.
There it is. The first minor leaguer taken.
No, Scotty.
And
Bobby Witt's gone. Yeah.
Bobby Witt, man, 15th overall.
I lied. Sorry. Okay, so there've been 2. Those are the right 2, and they both went about where I ranked them. So I can't really. Clearly, if you're forfeiting, if you're dedicating one of your first 3 picks to a player who is not going to contribute this year, it sounds like you're planning not to be a contender right away, but for a format this shallow, I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, in the case of both Witt and Rodriguez, certainly everyone agrees Witt's going to be up sooner than later. I kind of think Rodriguez will be too. And if they do live up to their hype right away, they'll be must-start players. They'll be must-start players right away. But even if they don't, there's the waiver wire abounds in talent in this format, so you can patch things up if they don't go according to plan. So, you're obviously creating a more difficult path for yourself, but I don't think you're necessarily sinking your 2022 chances by making one of those picks.
All right, Jesse, your 3rd round pick, you go with Julio Urias. So you've got Vlad, Trout, and Urias so far with your first 3 picks. And tell us why you went with Urias, and just overall walk us through, specifically in this format and a startup dynasty league, what is your overall strategy? Is it win now? Is it I want to get young players? Is it a mix of both? What are you thinking there?
It's sort of a mix of both. I usually try and target players that are 28 or 27 and under, ideally, especially early in the drafts. I want to win now, always, because you never know how long dynasty leagues will last, to be honest. There's too often I've seen leagues collapse after a few years. Even with the best of intentions and a strong group of owners at the beginning, life happens and things happen, and league turnover happens, and it can sink leagues. So I'm here to win right now, and be positioned to win for several years. I'm not looking at like immediately to be like, I'm not drafting as if it's a redraft, of course. I want to have players who are going to give me production for years to come and help me win immediately. And Urias, I really do like. He's one of the youngest stud starting pitchers in the game, 25 years old. He had 20 wins last year. I really buy a lot of what I see with him. He has some of the best stuff in the game, an electric fastball, 94 miles an hour, but it really plays. And his curveball is one of the best breaking balls in all of baseball. And, I just love having a guy who I think has the injuries in the past, hopefully, and that he's going to be a stud, secure pitcher for my team for the next, 5, 7 years, hopefully, and give me great ratios. I mean, obviously you don't need ratios and points, but the wins matter, and LA is going to always be churning them out.
All right, let's catch everyone up and tell everyone what just happened here.
Yeah, because
it's
I
so
appreciate
obvious.
you filibustering for me there because I was struggling.
Let's tell everyone really what just happened here because, all right, Jesse takes Julio Urias, and I appreciate your breakdown, Jesse. I was trying to find who I was going to draft next. I put someone in my queue, and then Scott went ahead and took him. So Aaron Judge goes off the board, then Jared Kelenic, Francisco Lindor, Scotty, 31st overall, says that he's struggling to figure out who he's going to draft, sees me put Sandy Alcantara in my queue.
Oh, no, you're just a little ant on my screen, Frank. I'm not paying attention to what you're doing.
Right. All right.
You're just an ant both on my screen and in my mind, Frank.
All right, talk for a little bit because I got to figure out who I'm going to draft.
Okay, yeah. So I went with Sandy Alcantara because it's a points league, and eating innings is his thing, and that's what I value above anything else among pitchers in this format. And he's very young, so that's nice. Up next in my rankings was Austin Riley, and I probably would have taken him if I hadn't taken Jose Ramirez with my very first pick. No reason to take a second, third baseman in a league that uses head-to-head lineups like this. So I went with a pitcher instead. I'm curious to see if the hitter I consider makes it back to me. I'm not going to say it out loud, but there's the hitter that I almost took instead. I think the couple picks before mine, Francisco Lindor, Jared Kelenic. Remember, we're in round 3. I don't know. I found both of them a little surprising.
I agree. I think there's definitely a very loud contingent of our community that is very pro Jared Kelenic. I'm talking about you, Eric Cross. And he really did struggle for much of his debut, but he did turn it on the last month. I mean, the power is very much plus. He gets to it in games. I do think that there is some approach and contact concerns that I think are outstanding and haven't been answered yet. And I just, players that have had that type of debut just haven't really, they've in large part, for most players, they have disappointed. I mean, and I wouldn't put this type of draft capital on a player like that right now.
All right, so let's catch everybody up here. What happened? All right, after Sandy Alcantara went, we see Zach Wheeler, Lucas Giolito, Aaron Nola. All the pitchers are going, geez. And then Austin Riley. And you know what? If I didn't take Rafael Devers on the turn, I would have really wanted Austin Riley. So I'm happy I took Devers because
I know, right? We filled third base early. Think we were doing the responsible thing. And
yeah, I would have got sniped here and I would have hated it. So I'm debating right now, do I want to take a young starting pitcher? There's Freddie Peralta. There's another one in my mind, but I'm not going to do it because I do still kind of have some concerns about Freddie Peralta long-term. I'm not going to invest this early of a pick in him. Eloy Jimenez, I know the plate discipline isn't fantastic, which doesn't ultimately play up that much in a points league, but he's still young, and I don't think that we've seen the best yet from Eloy Jimenez. He's in my Breakouts 1.0 article. I still think that we can see a Nolan Arenado type breakout season from him. And I'm talking about Nolan Arenado from when he was in Coors Field, right? So like really 4 categories. And I think if he does that, he'll be good in a points league as well.
He's also a White Sox player. So
you're right about that. Do I have any? I think I have some Hawk Harrelson stuff loaded up here.
Mercy!
There you go. Hawk agrees with the pick. My other pick here, I'm going to take Matt Olson. I buy what he did last year. I think maybe the strikeouts creep back in a little bit.
I wanted, Frank.
All right. So let's make a trade, Scott. Come on. I really wanted Sandy. That's my guy. Kind of hurts to see him go to your team, but I'm going to go with Matt Olson. And if you haven't realized by now, my overall approach in a startup dynasty league would be to, like Jesse said, I'm trying to draft players who are under 27, 28 years old, who can help me win now, who are kind of growing into their prime together. So Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Rafi Devers, those guys are all between 22 and 25 years old. I think they're going to continue to get better. Matt Olson, I think, is already there. I don't know he's going to be much better, but if he goes to the Yankees or the Braves or the Dodgers, gets out of Oko, there's a chance he actually could potentially be better. So Freddie Peralta was the pitcher I was debating there. I ultimately did not go with him. So I have no pitching through my first 4 picks. Let's see how it turns out. Adley Ruchman is the pick that goes 39th overall. Jesse, what do you think about Adley Ruchman, a catcher going in a dynasty startup points league this early in the 4th round? Does it make sense?
I don't hate it because remember we are only, you have to start 12 catchers in this league. So actually having a high-end catcher is a big advantage in a league like this. And I think that someone like Rushman is going to play up a big time in points because he makes tons of contact, has excellent plate discipline, and he's very patient. So I think he's going to have lots of walks, and I don't think he's going to whiff or strike out all that much. I do think that I'm not exactly sure how well the power is going to play. And, Camden Yards, they've pushed back left field. So we'll see how that impacts their right-handed hitters and players like Rushman. But I don't hate it. In points leagues, in formats like this, I'm all on board with pushing Rushman up.
All right. Yeah. I mean, specifically the plate discipline too last year, fantastic in the minors and something that should definitely play up when he makes it to the majors at some point this year. I don't know if he'll start the year with the Baltimore Orioles, but if not, he will be up soon thereafter. After Adley Ruchman, we see Pete Alonso, Xander Bogaerts go. And now, Scotty, you are on the clock with your 4th round pick.
Yeah, again, not totally clear what I want to do here. I got sniped with that Xander Bogaerts pick, which I don't feel terrible about because there's a lot of shortstops to like, is particularly in a league where there's no middle infield spot. Nobody's really like screaming at me here that I need to take him. So I'm going to go with the prospect myself, Spencer Torkelson, who should be a plate discipline standout in addition to bringing big power. He should be up early this year. And, to the extent that first base is weak and, we say it's deep, but it's not particularly high end. Well, you want high end in a league where every team starts only 9 hitters. So I think I'm going to like having him long-term as my first baseman.
All right. Spencer Torkelson, here were his walk rates at 3 levels in the minors last season: 17%, 14%, 13%. The guy has a phenomenal eye at the plate. He's going to walk, definitely going to help in points leagues as well. The 43rd overall pick goes there to Marcus Semien. We have 2 more picks until Jesse is on the clock. Jesse, real quick, what do you think about Spencer Torkelson going in the same range as an Adley Ruchman?
I am all for it. I really do prefer Torkelson to Rushman in Roto in basically every format. I think that 2 catcher formats or formats like this makes it very close. But Torkelson has much more power than Rushman. This is a guy who has double plus power, and his power plays in games. And, my biggest concern with Torque is I'm not super confident he's going to hit for a high average because I think his approach is borderline passive. Like he really takes almost every count really, really deep and just kind of waits and is very selective, waits for his pitch. It works out because a lot of times those are home runs, but sometimes there's going to be strikeouts. There's going to be poor contact sometimes. They just forced to protect against. And so I'm not sure about his average, but in points, who cares? Because I think that he's going to get on base and he's going to hit for power.
All right. Well, you're on the clock with 20 more seconds, so I'm going to let you think through your draft pick. I don't want you to keep talking and miss out on your draft pick here. After we saw Torkelson and Semien, Teoscar Hernandez goes 44th overall, and then Alek Manoah. So one of those younger starting pitchers, up and coming, who was pretty damn good
to draft.
What's up?
I just tried to draft.
Who do you want?
It worked out. That's who I wanted.
Is that who you wanted? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was actually just looking at him myself again. I already had third base filled, so it didn't really make sense for me. But Alex Bregman, 27 years old. We'll see how he responds coming back from that injury. But when healthy, Jesse, a points league standout.
Yeah, I mean, he has remarkable play discipline. This is some of the best play discipline in baseball. Back in 2019, his epic 41 home run season, he had 83 strikeouts to 119 walks. I mean, that was like a points years for the ages, right? He is obviously backed up in a big way since then, but I think that he's going to be a safe points accumulator. I don't think that he's going to hit 41 home runs again, but I think there's going to be enough power, enough extra base hits here to drive a very profitable points total.
Yeah, we're talking about somebody who, in his prime when he was healthy was walking more than he was striking out. I mean, that is just an invaluable skill for points leagues. Carlos Santana is someone who stands out, who used to always do that as well. Let's see what else happened here. We see Jack Flaherty go off the board right after Jesse. Then Jacob deGrom. Someone had to do it.
Yeah.
It's points league. It's risky, but even if he's
Well,
healthy for 2-3 more years, you're crossing your fingers. But if he is, he's going to be really damn good.
Yeah, I was really curious to see where he'd go, because I find what happens in these startup dynasty mocks we do is, well, of course, all players on the wrong side of 30 tend to fall, but especially starting pitchers. And I feel like the old starting pitchers are the ones who they tend to be the higher impact guys, because they've been grandfathered in with this heavier workload. So I like building my staff with a bunch of them, at a multi-round discount. And looks like RJ beat me to the punch on DeGrom.
All right, Jesse, you are on the clock here. Do you know who you're going to draft? Oh, there you go.
I did not really know who I was going to draft with that one. And I think I have a little bit of remorse on passing on DeGrom, honestly, and going with Bregman. I felt like DeGrom might make it back to me, because that was my plan. I think that is a great risk to take, because if I can get 100, 120 innings out of like Jacob DeGrom, I'm happy. In a league like this where you're only rostering, you have 5 active starting pitchers, but you can easily patch around injuries to players like Jacob DeGrom, unless of course he's out for like a massively extensive period of time. But I took Jonathan India with my pick instead, which may feel high for some people, but he's 25 years old. This is a guy who is very patient, walks a ton, emerging power. I think that he's going to be great producer in points leagues, and he's a guy who I definitely give a boost to in formats like this. And second base, that's another consideration. He's going to be a second base eligible player. Second base is not one of the strongest positions, especially in a points format. So I'm very happy with taking someone like India and locking him up for a long period of time.
You're trying to get him from me. That's somebody you're trying to trade for with me in one of those leagues.
He is a player I've been asking Scott about in the score sheet.
Not happening.
Let's catch people up on what's happening here in the 5th round. We mentioned DeGrom to close out round 4. Then Salvador Perez, Logan Webb. Logan Webb was the other pitcher that I was debating at my last pick. Logan Webb and Freddie Peralta were the pitchers I was looking at. Jesse takes Jonathan India. Then we see Max Fried, Robbie Ray, Brandon Lau. Scotty takes the plunge and goes with Cedric Mullins. Is this the real Cedric Mullins? I don't know. We're going to find out. But Scotty gets a discount compared to redraft, getting him in the 5th round here. But Scott, it seems you're pretty confident in one Cedric Mullins.
Yeah, pretty confident. Round 5, I don't think you have to be supremely confident in the only 30-30 man last year. But, I just feel like the value is too good to pass up, especially since he's 27. He's not one of those older guys. So if he is legit, then he should be my number 1 outfielder for several years to come.
All right. What happened after you took Cedric Mullins? Riley Green, another big name prospect, top 5 fantasy prospect right now. And then Nolan Arenado goes 57th overall. Rock solid third baseman, obviously a little bit older at this point, but I would imagine still has a few really good fantasy relevant years ahead of him here. And I am coming up. Let's see what I want to do. I have a few things in my mind here. Might grab some pitching, thinking about taking some pitching, but if not, should I take a prospect? I don't know. Let's figure it out together right now.
Do you have a prospect yet? Because by the way, everybody's supposed to draft at least 5 of those. That's a rule I made for them.
Oh gosh, Scott, how many reserves are here?
A lot.
Oh geez,
because 5 need to be minor leaguers.
All righty. Well, do we want to? Does Phil want to keep that pick? Will Smith. I guess we got to figure that out.
Yeah, I got audited. But there's nothing wrong with it. So
yeah, typically I like to compete a lot. Like, again, I think my strategy is kind of similar to what you were mentioning earlier, Jesse, where I want to compete now. I want guys that are growing together into their prime. I typically like to get a top-ish prospect, but this is still kind of early for me. And obviously there's a lot of prospects, right? Like we can wait a couple of rounds and I think you could still get a top, 15, 20-ish type prospect. So I'm going to wait. And I think that I am going to double up on starting pitching, which is risky in any dynasty league. But Considering it's a points league, I've got really good hitters so far. I've got Matt Olson, Devers, Eloy Jimenez, and Luis Robert myself. I am going to take Trevor Rogers. I do like Trevor Rogers quite a bit. I like a lot of what I saw last season. I know he slowed up in the second half. He was dealing with some off-field stuff, but overall, I think the stuff really, really plays, throws hard, lower to mid-90s with the fastball, but has some 2 secondary pitches there that I do like quite a bit as well. Now, do I want to use the other pick on an old pitcher or double up on 2 young guys? I'm going to take 2 young guys, and I'm going to go with Dylan Cease. I do have Shane McClanahan ranked ahead of Dylan Cease in redraft this year, but I don't know. I feel like Dylan Cease is closer to already being that guy, to being that breakout type player. So Trevor Rogers and Dylan Cease, 100% risky. I get it. 5th, 6th round picks in a startup dynasty league. Scott, what do you think? Is that all right? Too early?
I don't love the value of either. I mean, I recognize the upside. It could certainly work out for you. I just feel like they're part of a giant glob at starting pitcher of young guys with similar upside, and I'm not sure either stands out enough from that glob for me to pass up some of the more established high-end types that are still available.
All right. Jesse, what do you think? Trevor Rogers, Dylan Cease, they are both 26 years old or younger. I do like, I'm not going to say his name. I'll say his name when he gets drafted, but
I'm higher on Rogers, honestly.
Okay.
I've been higher on Rogers for some time. I've liked Cease for a long time, but I'm still just concerned about his command. I think that there's a real chance that he doesn't give you the type of quality innings that you're looking for, because he's going to be giving up too many base runners. He'll give up some shockingly hard contact sometimes because he just misses his spots. Trevor Rogers, meanwhile, has solid command. He has that fastball, which just runs through lineups, mid-90s fastball. I think it averaged about 95 miles an hour this year, and he pairs it with one of the better changeups in baseball. And the Marlins have just such a great job of developing changeups with all their young pitchers, and his changeup's fantastic. His breaking ball has come along. His slider's come along. It's still borderline to average, but at least it does miss bats. I think if it can take another step forward, then there's a real chance that Rogers develops into a top 50 dynasty player very quickly.
All right. Well, I took him at, what would that be? 60. Not far off. Let's see if he could actually continue to develop and turn into that asset that we all hope he could be. After I took Dylan Cease, we see Joe Musgrove go off the board, Dylan Carlson, Brian Reynolds, Luis Castillo, and Scott just selected Jose Barrios. And that was somebody that I was debating myself. Really great for points leagues, lots of volume. I think we kind of know who he is, mid to high 3s ERA. But he's really good for points leagues. He gives us quality starts, Scotty. And at this point, that is your second starting pitcher?
Third.
I
have Walker Buehler, Sandy Alcantara, and Jose Barrios, which if you're going to invest in starting pitcher, this is the scoring format to do it in. Whether or not you do it in Dynasty League is another matter. I actually changed my mind in the last 10 seconds there. I was thinking shortstop all along, but then I caught a look at how, all those great shortstops that are still remaining. I'm looking at the top prospects available. They're pretty much all shortstops. And I'm like, I'm not sure there's enough of a scarcity here in, again, a league without a middle infield spot to go for Corey Seager. He just went to Jesse.
Yeah, I just took Seager.
So that was actually the one I was going to take.
That's your boy, man. Corey Seager has been your guy for quite a while now, Scotty.
Yes, I guess the argument I was making against taking him, he found uncompelling.
I think that you make a good case, but does I think the shortstops do fall off a cliff pretty quickly. So there's a few more left that I would feel very comfortable with running out in a 12-team points league. But you don't want to be near that like 12th point in a points league. I think that you're going to be running with your best player at shortstop will actually be a prospect who won't likely arrive for some time. And again, I'm trying to win now, so give me someone who's producing. And hey, Tim Anderson just went off the board too, so we're
Yep.
maybe seeing a run on shortstops.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, Scott, for starting it.
Well, that's okay. There's still several I like. Several I'll be happy with as a starter. So we'll see.
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie Adames is still there, so you could take him with your next pick. There's no issue with that.
Exactly.
Who else did we see go here? Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer was another pitcher that I was debating. I was going to go one young pitcher, one old pitcher. We know Scherzer is going to pitch for likely at least 3 more years. That's the contract that he signed with the Mets. So, I mean, to get a top 5, maybe he falls off a little bit, top 12, top 15 starting pitcher for the next 3 years. I think this is probably the right time for him to go. Lance Lynn goes off the board, Byron Buxton, Corey Seager to Jesse, then Tim Anderson, Jose Altuve, and I was considering Shane Baz as well, and we see him go with the first pick of round 7 here to RJ. I feel like RJ White has a lot of starting pitchers so far.
He's been stockpiling old guys who people are passing up because they're old, and So Salvador Perez, he got Jacob deGrom. We talked about Jose Altuve, a bit on the older side there, but like his team looks awesome. Like his starting 3 are Jacob deGrom, Shane Bieber, and Brandon Woodruff. Now that wouldn't have turned out so awesome last year, obviously, because deGrom and Bieber missed so much time. But that the chances of that happening again for both of them are pretty low, I think.
And I think it's pretty interesting too. Again, like whenever I take an older player at a position, I almost feel like I need to supplement them with a young player, whether it's a prospect or just an up and coming player. So he's got an older pitcher in Jacob deGrom. What does he do? He grabs a prospect in Shane Baz, one of, if not the top pitching prospect in baseball, to go along with Brandon Woodruff and Shane Bieber there. He has Juan Soto, Jose Altuve, and Salvador Perez as his hitters. After Shane Baz went, we see Zach Gallen and Jesse. You select Chris Sale.
Yep. Yeah, I figured that it's time to go back to pitching. I don't really like to take pitching very early in dynasty leagues, but Chris Sale is healthy. He's back. When he's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. His velocity was a little down upon his return, but for the most part, his stuff was intact. And I think he's going to be a guy who might give you a discount in a lot of leagues. I know his ADP is creeping up there. I think last I looked, I think it was in the 40s. And I mean, I don't know about going that rich on him in redraft. Definitely not in dynasty, but I think he's a good value in dynasty leagues right now.
Yeah, I worry about him a little bit in redraft as well. And with the current ADP, he was in plus 1.0 for me. After Chris Sale, we see Kevin Gausman, Starling Marte, Chris Bryant, and Scotty, you're on the board with 30 seconds left.
So I'm tempted to go shortstop again. But I think I'm being more tempted by a particular prospect that's still out there.
Ooh, you're going to
want to do this?
Double down on the prospect, Scotty?
Yeah, well, this is a big one. There he is. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with Grayson Rodriguez.
All righty. Do you have older pitchers so far on your team?
Nope.
All right.
Oldest pitcher on my team is Jose Barrios.
Jeez. All right. So
it's between Barrios and Buehler. They're both 27.
3 starting pitchers here with Barrios, Walker Buehler, Sandy Alcantara, and then Grayson Rodriguez, the second pitching prospect here off the board, going shortly after Shane Baz. Jesse, who's your number 1 pitching prospect? If you're allowed to tell us, I don't even know.
I'm sure I am. I don't really care. They can deal with it. I think it's Shane Baz, just because we're going to get production out of him immediately. He's already shown in the major leagues. I mean, his stuff is fantastic. He's simplified his delivery. He's basically just throws from the stretch now, and his command's taken just this massive, probably like maybe 2 grade leap over the last year. So I'm all aboard Shane Baz. I think that if it wasn't for the fact that Baz was going to be giving me production now, I might lean Grayson Rodriguez, because I think he's going to be one of those rare 200 inning workhorse starters with that. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a young Garrett Cole, for example. And I really think that that's what he could become. And, Orioles are trying already to, aid him by moving those fences back. So I
Yep.
imagine he'll arrive mid-season or so. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, he's probably the best pitching prospect in baseball. But for fantasy, I prefer Boz because of proximity.
I agree 100%.
Nice. All right. So after we see Grayson Rodriguez, another prospect off the board, third base prospect, Josh Young with the Texas Rangers. And I think profiles really well in a points league. I think he's going to make a good amount of contact. I think the power is going to be there for him as well. Not a great ballpark, but the lineup is collectively getting better. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia. Hopefully he can bounce back, keep those strikeouts down. Nathaniel Lowe, someone I still like quite a bit. We'll see if he can, raise the launch angle, hit a few more fly balls, but Texas kind of growing together here just in time for one Josh Young. Look at that.
Alone needs to figure out how to hit sinkers is more like it.
All right.
He literally just hits them into the ground every time.
Josh Young is doing that?
Nathaniel Lowe.
Nathaniel Lowe. Yeah, you're right about that. He hits, I think it was like a 57% ground ball rate last year. Way too much. All right, Cody Bellinger, Adalberto Mondesi, and then Will Smith, the catcher, goes off the board here. Scott, I know that you're taking a shortstop, so I'm taking a shortstop because I don't want to get locked out of shortstop here. Well, let me make sure. I didn't take a shortstop yet. Okay, yeah, I didn't. It's hard for me to keep up with who I've actually selected. So
There's somebody else you want more, Frank. I know you.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I'm sure. Considering the two pitchers you took last time, Dylan Cease and Trevor Rogers, I'm surprised you didn't take them then.
No. Oh, I'm going to take that guy next. I have two picks.
Right. I was trying to talk you off shortstop.
No, I'm definitely taking Carlos Correa. That's one of the picks for sure. I really don't know where Carlos Correa is going to sign. He's been linked to the Cubs. I guess the Yankees are a possibility. I really don't think the Yankees are going to spend on a shortstop. I think they bring in Andrelton Simmons and then they just wait for Anthony Volpe. Maybe Seattle. I've seen Seattle linked to some of the shortstops. Dodgers, maybe to replace Corey Seager. We can see that happen. But Scott, I know you know who I'm about to take, and it's someone who I was debating last time.
Yeah, I'm really surprised because
I'm going all young on starting pitchers. I hope these guys kind of all develop and they just kind of take off. You know who it is? It's Shane O'Mac.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Shane McClanahan. So I don't know. We're gonna have to see what happens with this rotation here. Obviously, they're all young. Can they provide innings? I think that's probably going to be a question mark. But Trevor Rogers, Dylan Cease, Shane McClanahan, three young starting pitchers. I've got my shortstop in Carlos Correa. Jesse, what do you think about Shane McClanahan? Obviously, throws really hard from the left-hand side. He's got three different secondary pitches that I believe had a swinging strike rate of 17% or more last season. The problem is he did get hit a little bit hard at times. So I think, something he works through with the arsenal and hopefully helps everything else play up. But I think there's no denying the stuff is absolutely filthy for Shane McClanahan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like McClanahan and Cease, and they're back-to-back in my rankings, have very similar profiles because their stuff is so loud and their command is so inconsistent. With McClanahan, it's his, he's gotten a lot better with his fastball command, and his slider command is actually not bad, but his curveball and changeup command is like just all over the place. And I mean, those breaking balls miss bats though. The slider, curveball, and changeup all had whiff rates about 40% or more. And that's just fantastic. Having three secondaries that can miss bats at those rates is rare. Of course, his fastball is fantastic, but you're right. I mean, his command of it can waver, and even though it has great velocity and a decent movement profile, I mean, that's the other problem with his movement profile is not ideal. It's more like mediocre to average. And because of that, despite the fact he throws 96 miles an hour from left-hand side, it plays down a little bit. Command is still something we're going to have to monitor with McClanahan, but I mean, I do really love him.
George Springer here goes off the board at pick 86, and he's getting up there a little bit in age, 32 years old, but still a standout in points leagues and going to lead off for one of the best lineups in baseball. Lance McCullers, 87th overall, and then Nick Castellanos and Pablo Lopez. Scotty, is it shortstop time?
I don't know, Frank. You took the last of the tier, I feel like, and I don't know that I want to dip into the next tier yet. And it's still good players.
Nah, come on. Just draft Trevor Story, even though he's going to be out of Coors Field. It's fine.
That's true. Story is there. He probably is part of that tier, but yeah, I don't know. I had an idea. What was my idea?
I'll trade you Carlos Correa and Dylan Cease for Sandy Alcantara?
I don't think so, Frank.
Come on, man. Felt like that was like a halfway decent.
I wasn't even really listening, to be honest. I'm trying to make
It's
a pick
fine.
here.
I get it. You're trying to make a pick. I'm just trying to distract you so you do something crazy.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take Real Muto, lock in a bit of a catcher advantage there for at least the first couple years, and see what happens here. See what happens. It was another case. There wasn't a singular pick that was screaming out to me, you have to take me now. So I usually like to go for a scarcity when that happens, So JT Real Muto, that's the pick.
All right, Scotty, through 8 picks, you have JT Real Muto, Spencer Torkelson, Jose Ramirez, Cedric Mullins, and then 4 starting pitchers, Barrios, Walker Buehler, Sandy Alcantara, and Grayson Rodriguez. We'll come back to you in just one second, but we see Adolis Garcia, Noelvi Marte, another prospect there, and Willy Adames off the board. And Jesse, you are on the clock.
Yeah. So one thing I would caution in points leagues, and while I figure out my pick, I'm just gonna talk about this, rant about this basically, is players like Alberto Mondesi and Adolis Garcia massively underperform in points leagues because they never walk and they don't get on base enough. So they are interesting players in Roto because they offer power or speed or both, but they just aren't the players that I'd be targeting in this format.
We agree with you 100%. I mean, those are 2 players where you're going to see a huge difference in their Roto rank versus their head-to-head points league ranking, and rightfully so. I mean, they're guys that can provide some power, a little bit of speed for Garcia, a lot of speed for Mondesi if he could stay on the field. But you're right. Lots of strikeouts for both, and neither of them walk that much at all as well. Ketel Marte, that's the one that I was thinking about.
Yep.
He has the second base outfield eligibility, 28 years old, still in the prime of his career. Maybe he can get traded out of Arizona, something that could potentially help him joining a better lineup. I like the pick. I think it kind of fits in with the rest of the theme of your team here, Justin.
Yeah, and another guy who just thrives in points leagues because he doesn't strike out much, he walks plenty, and he drives a strong average, so he gets on base a ton, and there's power, but a lot of the power doesn't necessarily play over the fence. So he's a guy who plays up in a big way in points leagues, and he also has that eligibility. Second base outfield eligibility is nice to have.
You're screwing over somebody at second base since you already got India.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So
that it was between him and Real Muto and a pitcher with my last pick. So.
And I think Real Muto is a fantastic pick in points, especially when it's a 12-teamer. And you point out, scarcity is a big deal. 12 catchers have to start, so having one of the better ones that actually will give you a big point advantage over others is a big deal in a league like this. So catchers should get a bit of a boost in 12-teamers, or probably a similar boost as they would get in like a 2-catcher format.
All right, let's see who else went off the board. After Ketel Marte, we see Michael Kopeck, who I believe only has relief. No, he has starting pitcher and relief pitcher eligibility. Is that true, Scott? Does he have starting pitcher eligibility to start the year?
He may have made 5 starts. That's all it takes.
Yeah, I'll pull it up as well and see. Maybe he did make 5 starts. Obviously, he's
he made 4. You know what? I'm not sure I updated the eligibility requirements in this league after. Remember, they got changed coming off the 60-game season.
Mm-hmm.
So eligibility may be screwy.
All right.
But that's okay. It's just a mock.
Yeah, it's all good. Michael Kopeck is 25 years old, so normally he would only have relief pitcher eligibility to start the year. Hopefully he's in the rotation.
In a points league, you'd rather slot him in as a relief pitcher, get that starting pitcher, presuming he's in the rotation, get that starting pitcher production from a relief pitcher spot.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think long-term, the answer is that he's going to be a starting pitcher, and hopefully a really good one. I mean, we saw him return last year, and as in that hybrid role, was really good. 3.50 ERA, 1.13 whip, over 13 strikeouts per 9. After Kopeck, we see Randy Rosarina. I know that this is not his preferred format, but I feel like that's a pretty good get at this point in the draft. The 8-9 turn, even in a points league, getting Randy Rosarina there for RJ White. And then he takes Trevor Story. Story goes, Adames goes, no shortstops for Scott White.
Come on. There's shortstops. We're never going to run out of shortstops, Frank.
Luis Severino goes off the board at pick 98. And then Jesse, you take Josh Hader. Okay. Was this actually your pick? I saw the clock dwindling down. I don't know if you got auto pick there.
It is my pick.
Okay. Tell me about it.
It is my pick.
How do you feel about that now?
Well, look, we have to start 2 relievers in this league. Closers, I think he's going to be a secure closer. He's going to get lots of saves. I think he's going to get plenty of points. And ideally, I think that in a points league, you do ideally want to have a starting pitcher who is relief eligible to potentially take a relief slot. But I think there's a lot to be said to having like secure points, someone like Hader to have secure points for you as out of a relief role.
All right. After we see Josh Hader go, CJ Abrams, another prospect, top shortstop prospect for the San Diego Padres. And then Yasmani Grandal goes off the board, and Jazz Chisholm, who is another one where I think maybe you downgrade him a little bit in a points league. He's going to strike out quite a bit. The walk rate was actually jumped up a little bit last year. I was surprised to see that. Lots of upside for Jazz, but I still think he's pretty raw. We talked about him quite a bit on our podcast that was released today. Scotty, can I throw it your way? Can you kind of talk us through, or do you have no idea who you're going to take?
Oh, no, I have an idea.
All right. Tell us.
Let me just make sure. Okay, Luis Castillo is gone. Debating 2 pitchers. I am going to go with, you know what? I'm going to go with the older guy. I'm going to go with Charlie Morton, who I love. We've talked a lot about how much I love him. It may be a one and done, but in round 9, I'm happy with that.
All righty. Scotty gets his boy, Charlie Morton, homer pick for the Atlanta Braves. And then, so you have 5 starting pitchers. Obviously, Grayson Rodriguez not going to start the year with the Baltimore Orioles, but kind of similar to what I mentioned earlier, Scott, pairing a young stud prospect with, an older player in a Charlie Morton. I think it makes sense in Dynasty. If you're doing a startup, take someone now, and then obviously someone.
I don't like it anymore. I changed my mind. I wish I had gone Frankie Montas.
Oh, snap. I'm on the clock. Scott, keep talking about your team or Charlie.
Frankie Montas went 2 picks after. Jorge Polanco went 1 pick after. So these are all guys that I was considering. And yeah, I'm having the buyer's remorse a bit. As soon as the words "it may be a one and done" came out of my mouth, I thought, you know what? Probably shouldn't have done that.
Well, I think that, players like that are definitely give you buyer's remorse in Dynasty, but also relief pitchers in the top 100 give you buyer's remorse too. So I did, as you noted, the timer was running down, but I thought that taking Hader at that point made sense. And in retrospect, I don't know.
There you go.
Right. I don't know.
It's hard to draft and talk at the same time. Apparently.
It is.
I'm just going to stick with the theme, and I'm just going to lean all the way into it at this point. I mean, there's not really any starting pitchers here that I love. You Darvish, I'm scared about. He's older. Justin Verlander, how much time does he have left to pitch? Blake Snell, no thank you, not getting involved there. Chris Bassett, I think is pretty undervalued. All right, I'm going to stop talking about these players and figure out who else I want to draft. Cody Bellinger went a long time ago. I think it was like the 7th round. That was a really good pick. I like the buy on Cody Bellinger right now. Scotty, I guess remind everyone else who got drafted while I try to figure this out.
Okay, so after my Morton pick, it was Jorge Polanco, then Frankie Montas, then Tommy Edman, which is interesting for a points league. Tyler Mahle, Logan Gilbert. So we're kind of dropping down a tier now here with the starting pitchers, which is fine. There's still a couple of older guys that I feel like have a better chance of delivering an ace outcome right away, but they are older, kind of like Charlie Morton, and I can understand why people might want to pass them over. Frank, you took an older guy just now with Merrifield.
That's right. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the old man train rolling here. So I take Logan Gilbert, another young starting pitcher. So look, it's risky. I get it. Hopefully all these guys continue to progress. I've got Cease, I've got Trevor Rogers, Shane McClanahan, Logan Gilbert as my 4 starting pitchers. And then I take Whit Merrifield. Was looking at second base. Nobody that I really love here. So I'll take the older guy, and I'm sure I will take a second base prospect a little bit later on to pair with him. Maybe we get 2 more really good years out of Whit Merrifield. And if he does that, I will be perfectly fine with that. The players after Whit Merrifield, I thought about Mike Clevenger. He's actually older than you think. Clevenger is 31 years old, and he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. So I think there are some question marks there. Ryan Mountcastle, and then a pitching prospect in George Kirby. Jesse, we see George Kirby and Logan Gilbert go within 5 picks of each other. Who would you rather have in a startup dynasty mock draft or a real dynasty draft?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually think they're remarkably similar pitchers, because they both have awesome fastballs. Kirby throws for more velocity, but Gilbert gets so much extension on his fastball. One of the best extensions in all of baseball, that it plays way up. So I think both of them, arguably could develop like double plus fastballs. All they have secondaries. They have plenty of secondaries. They're all okay. They're all like average. They linger around average. They all flash, but and they both have fantastic command. So they're so similar. And so because of that, I will definitely lean Gilbert, because Gilbert's going to give you production right now. Kirby likely arrives at some point this year, but it's hard to say. He's going to definitely have to spend some time in the upper minors this year. So I'd rather have the right now production that Gilbert's going to provide.
All right. Music to my ears. Logan Gilbert in my breakouts column for this season. I like him quite a bit. He's got the secondary stuff. He's got to be more consistent with it, and he already has a really electric fastball. So I like Logan Gilbert, and that's exactly why I selected him. After George Kirby went, we see Alex Kirilloff and Scott. That was one of the players that I was debating myself. So you still don't have a shortstop that you could start yet, but at least you have one that's supposed to be
got my shortstop of the future. Maybe I'll pair him with Brandon Crawford or something. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm kind of in tilt mode right now. That Charlie Morton pick after Jorge Polanco and Whit Merrifield then went. Like, now I don't really like much of what's left at second base or shortstop. So yeah, I hate myself. It seems like every time we do one of these live drafts, there's just one pick that I immediately regret and obsess about for the rest of the draft. And I think we found it in this one.
All righty. If you're watching us live on YouTube right now, I feel like my face is so pink. My heat is on like 85 degrees in my house right now. I am burning up. So I'm trying to make it through this without passing out. It is really, really hot where I'm recording this right now.
And I have the lawyer background of nothing.
Jesse, if you've been kidnapped or anything, please let us know. He's in a white room by himself. After Anthony Volpe goes, we see Joey Gallo, Carlos Rodon, Jack Leiter. Okay, I believe he is the first year player draft. So that was weird to say, but yes, the of the players in the MLB draft in 2022, he is the first one being drafted here in Dynasty, which probably makes sense in a points league.
Yeah, both because he's a pitcher, a highly projectable pitcher, and somebody who was picked out of college as opposed to high school. So you're going to get a more immediate return. It's kind of between him and the 4 shortstops, right, from last year's draft class, who should be the first round pick in. Oh my goodness, we just breezed through a bunch of picks. I got to figure out who I'm taking here.
All right,
well,
guys.
for those that have actually signed.
Yes, that is correct. Let me catch everyone up, and then we'll let Jesse talk about Jack Leiter a little bit here. Jesse Winker went to Jesse Roche, and then Andrew Vaughn and Christian Yelich close out round 10. Cade Cavalli to start round 11. So another pitching prospect off the board. Max Muncy, who is fantastic in points leagues. We got to see what's going on with that elbow. Luis Garcia also goes to Jesse. And then we see Jose Abreu, Paul Goldschmidt, and Steven Matz go off the board. Scott is on the clock. We'll get back to him. Jesse, tell us more about Jack Leiter. Should he be the first of the 2021 MLB draftees taken in a startup dynasty league?
Of the draftees in points, Yes, I would say so, because we're talking about a pitcher who's going to move very quickly. He's a modern, analytically driven pitcher with, a fastball that may already be double plus. It's got great flat plane, and I think it's, one of those pitches that organizations these days are just clamoring for. And he has three secondaries that all flash. They all flash above average. They all flash plus. They're just a bit inconsistent. Some people might point to his size and be a little scared off about it. I mean, he's about 6', 6'1". Definitely probably trends toward 6 foot. But I mean, that's modern baseball. We're trending toward those players who can have low release heights, who get, very good vertical approach angles. And that's exactly what Leiter is. I think that he's going to rack up strikeouts. He's potentially going to be pitching in a good pitcher's park. Texas has not done a great job of developing pitching lately, but I mean, he's almost ready right now. So I think that he's the best guy I would take in a points-based format for sure.
All right, let's catch people up. Scotty takes Tristan Casas, just leaning all the way into the prospects at this point.
I know, another first baseman too, right?
Yeah, you got Casas, you've got Spencer Torkelson, Grayson Rodriguez, and your last pick was Anthony Volpe. Emmanuel Clase, we've got another closer off the board, and then Aaron Cevalle, who was kind of a mixed bag last year. I do think he's better in points leagues because he does go deeper into his starts. We'll see if he can bounce back this year with Cleveland and stay healthy. He's got to do that as well. Another prospect goes off the board in Marco Luciano, and then Gavin Lux, who, as of now, we'll see if the Dodgers sign a shortstop or another middle infielder. It looks like Gavin Lux is going to be the everyday starting second baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, I want to take a prospect, and I mentioned earlier that I've got Whit Merrifield, and he's old, and there are a few second base prospects that I am thinking about right now. But do I put the position scarcity ahead of just overall prospect ranking? I think this is probably the right time for this guy to go anyway. So I am going to select Nick Gonzalez of the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of the top prospects in the game, and obviously what I mentioned earlier, pairing an older player in my lineup, Whit Merrifield, with Nick Gonzalez. I think by the time that Whit Merrifield is fading, that'll be the time that Nick Gonzalez is ascending and making his way to the Pirates and hopefully becoming an elite fantasy asset, who I think could be really good for points leagues as well. I need another outfielder here. I need a catcher. Check out catcher, see what's going on. Dalton Varsho. Dalton Varsho is an interesting one because is he going to have catcher eligibility for long in Dynasty? I think that is a question mark long term. So I am not. And plus, I'm just kind of skeptical about Dalton Varsho anyway. I'm not taking any catchers here. I think I'm going to go with an outfielder who's a guy that can help me now, that's pretty good in points leagues, not too old. I'll go with Kyle Schwarber. And I think that I'll be able to find an outfield prospect a little bit later on to, again, not that Schwarber is super old or anything, but I think I'll find an outfield prospect that I like to kind of pair with Kyle Schwarber. I still only have 4 starting pitchers, so I've got to address that at some point as well. Jesse, what do you think about the Nick Gonzalez pick? Please tell me it was good.
I think it's a bit early for Nick Gonzalez. I think Nick Gonzalez, there has been mixed reviews coming out of the Baseball Prospectus about Nick Gonzalez's bat. People think he'll hit. They just are not quite sure where those tools, because it's really mainly hit and power tools that we're looking at. I mean, there's some speed. I mean, he might steal a couple of some bases, maybe double digits, maybe, but it's really about where the hit and power is going to end up. And, I think there has been reports where there's some that don't think he'll get beyond like average hit and power tools. There are others who think they're both going to be plus. Personally, he showed out all last year. I mean, he obliterated high at Greensboro. I used to live in Greensboro, and I know for a fact that is a big time hitter's park. So we got to take his performance at that level with a bit of a grain of salt, especially as an established college bat. I really want to see him perform in AA. He did destroy the AFL as well. He just hasn't been challenged. I mean, the guy can hit. And I think in points, he does play up, but I think there are other prospects that I would prefer that are available in point that I think are going to be great in points leagues. And, when they show up, I will let you know who they are.
There was another prospect in particular that I was weighing. Again, do I want to push up a second baseman because I already had an older Whit Merrifield versus just taking the better prospect? And, if this was an actual dynasty startup, I think the answer is to just take the better prospect, and you'll find a second base prospect at some point. So, look, we've all made mistakes. Scott took Charlie Morton. Jesse took Josh Hader. I took a second base prospect a little bit too early. Let's catch everybody up.
I mean, I don't think it was that early, Frank, to be perfectly
It wasn't that
honest.
early.
No.
Just a touch early.
My mistake was worse than yours. Nobody can beat my mistake, Frank.
I'll try my best. I've got a few more picks coming up, so I believe me, I think I'll have a chance to match that. After I took Kyle Schwarber, another pitching prospect in Max Meyer, then Jose Urquidy, Zach Veen, an interesting one, Blake Snell. Blake Snell was really good from August on last year. I just wonder if he'll be able to replicate that success. Is he going to stick with that kind of pitch mix? I don't know. Corbin Carroll, that is the prospect that I was debating taking over Nick Gonzalez just for the sake of having the better prospect. I do consider Corbin Carroll a better overall fantasy prospect than one Nick Gonzalez. Then we see Framber Valdez and Yoan Moncada. Scott, you're all the way in. You're just going. You're going prospects at this point, and that's what you're all about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not abandoning the idea of competing this year. My top 4 starting pitchers are still Buehler, Alcantara, Barrios, and Morton. I do need to start filling out my hitting portion of my lineup a little more. But the thing about these prospects I've taken, so let's go through them all: Spencer Torkelson, Grayson Rodriguez, Tristan Casas, Anthony Volpe, Corbin Carroll. I mean, these are all top 15 prospects in my eyes. And all of them should debut either this year or next, So I like that they're both, we're talking really high ceilings for all of them. And we're talking very close to contributing for all of them. So normally when we do these dynasty startups, I'm not the big prospect guy, but I just feel like nobody in this draft seems to be. So I guess it's fallen on me.
I was about to jump in mid-analysis there for you, Scotty, to let you know that Jesse took Ranger Suarez. So we've got to talk about that. After Framber Valdez goes Yoan Moncada, Ty France, Ranger Suarez to Jesse, and then Alex Verdugo goes to Corey Pieper there. Jesse, we were just talking about Ranger Suarez on our podcast last night and how nobody really wants Ranger Suarez, but here you are taking him in a dynasty league. Why is that?
Well,
I mean, I really love Ranger Suarez. I think that people are underrating him because of his run last year. His run last year came out against a lot of poor offenses. If you just look at his straight up stats last year, they're just wild, right? 1.36 ERA, 1 WHIP. But I really do believe his stuff plays. He gained 2 miles an hour, or roughly 2 miles an hour on his fastball last year, and it played as one of the best pitches in baseball because of the way he locates it and he hides it. He kind of throws a little across body, and he plays his changeup so well off his fastball that they both play up massively. And last year his fastball, sinker and four seam, had negative 30 run value, which was collectively, I believe that was the best in all of baseball. And he only threw 106 innings. So I really do believe that his stuff is a bit underrated because he doesn't have that flashy, 95 mile an hour fastball. But I think he's going to run through lineups. And, just at this point, I think his value is really good because he's going often in redrafts well after pick 150. And I think that's in a points league. I'm okay with taking him before that, and I think this is a good time to take him.
All right, music to Scotty's ears there. We have another Ranger Suarez fan. I didn't know any other existed, Scott. I thought you were the only one.
Brett Sayer is also a massive Ranger Suarez fan.
All right, so this is good. We've got some smart fantasy baseball players who like Ranger Suarez. So there you go. You need another reason to buy. Scott's not the only one there. Some Ranger Suarez love. Reese Hoskins to end out round 12, who plays up very well in a points league, lots of walks, lots of home runs. And then RJ White also takes Yu Darvish. And then Tyler Glasnow, that is a sneaky good pick. Had Tommy John surgery midseason last year. Probably not going to be back this year, but man, by 2023, you could be looking at a top 15, top 10 starting pitcher again there. Justin Verlander goes off the board to Jesse, and then Ke'Bryan Hayes, Brennan Davis, another top prospect in baseball and outfielder with the Cubs, and Javier Baez off the board. Scott, do you know who you want to select, or should I go to Jesse?
I know who I want to select.
Do it.
Ready? Let's Time to fill one of those middle infield spots. I'm not ready to commit to which one it's going to be because this guy's eligible at both.
Oh, I know who it is.
This format is the better one for him because he's not a counting stat standout, has pretty good plate discipline. His name is Jake Cronenworth.
Yeah. Ooh, that's not who I was going to say.
That's not who you thought. Okay.
Well, the guy who I thought you were going to take is not available. He's kind of. I thought you were going to take Jorge Polanco, but
he's long gone. Yeah, he's long gone. And I think Javier Baez recently went too because I was also eyeballing him. But
right.
I think for this format, Cronenworth might be better than Baez.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, look, we know the wild plate discipline of one Javier Baez, even exacerbated last year. 31 or 32% strikeout rate, a walk rate below 5%. Does not play up very well in a points league. Jesse, you selected Justin Verlander with the hope that you get one or two more really good years from him.
2 more. I think he's going to be 2 more because look, this is I believe it's a player option for next year too, both at 25 million. I mean, he's very much dedicated. I think he's going to, and he lives a lavish lifestyle, so he needs that money. So I think he's going to play for 2 years, and I think he'll produce because, I mean, the stuff's back, and, he's on a good team that will get him wins. In a format like this, 12-team format with a shallow bench, only 26 total roster spots per team, I am very comfortable drafting older players because, you can replace them more readily because there's just a lot more available on waivers on free agency. So I'm not concerned with his age in this format. In other formats, in deeper formats, I think he definitely should be, faded a lot more. But I think that people are maybe overlooking him a bit right now. I think that by the time the season approaches, he's going to be regularly drafted within the top 100 in redraft formats, right around where Charlie Morton is, and maybe he even passes Charlie Morton.
All right, I had to go with a bit of a homer pick there. Take my guy, Giancarlo Stanton. He's 32 years old. I was debating him or JD. JD, 2 more years, 2 years older. Is the production that far off at this point? I don't think so. So I'm going to go with Giancarlo Stanton. Hopefully he could stay healthy there. Thinking about taking another starting pitcher. It's not great. It's not great here. I've talked a lot about, not a lot, but I've mentioned recently Sean Manaya and how I think he's criminally undervalued in points leagues right now. So I'm going to take Sean Manaya, who is 29 years old. You see that there. Fill out my starting pitching staff, which is not great. It's not great, but we're hoping that these guys grow together, grow into aces. Sean Manaya, Dylan Cease, Trevor Rogers, Shane McClanahan, and Logan Gilbert. Sean Manaya did some interesting things last year. The velocity was up for him. I'm hoping that can remain. As a result, the swinging strike rate was up, and overall just helped everything play up for Sean Manaya. So I'm hoping that remains, and we'll see where he plays because it sounds like Oakland just kind of wants to blow everything up right now. After Scott took, let me catch everyone up. Jake Cronenworth, we saw Michael Conforto go, Joe Adell, Herman Marquez, Dansby Swanson. I took Stanton and Sean Manaya, and then another prospect here in Alec Thomas, Austin Meadows, and Casey Mize, a young starting pitcher with the Tigers. Jesse, Casey Mize is kind of interesting for me to figure out because while he was good last year, the strikeouts weren't there for him. The underlying numbers don't really like Casey Mize. Is he ever going to come close to the pitcher we thought he was going to be? Maybe that ace type pitcher he was projecting as when he was a prospect?
I've loved Mize for a long time, but I've always had reservations about his fastball. I think they can be very hittable. Like it just doesn't have the type of movement profile I want out of a fastball in a lot of ways. And I saw it even in college where even when he was dominating for Auburn, he would just get blown up by hitters occasionally on that fastball. I mean, his splitter is fantastic. His slider is fantastic. Both his breaking balls miss bats to a point. That's the problem though. The slider is more meant to induce weak content, and so is the splitter. They can miss bats, but he doesn't use them that way. And the pitch that he misses the most bats with his strikeout pitch is his four-seam fastball, which is one of his weaker offerings. So I think he's going to need to work on improving his fastball command, which, believe it or not, is actually spotty, which is surprising because he was lauded as and I saw it in college as a big time command arm. So I mean that fastball is the sink or swim pitch for him. But yeah, I think that there are some underlying issues with him.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I think we're in agreement there on Casey Mize. After he goes, Luis Patino, JD Martinez to Scott. He gets a hitter who is in the majors right now. So good to see that.
There you go. So they start working on the 2022 hopes here with some of the old guys who are still hanging on here in round 14. There's a few left. There's a few big bats left that just, they're in their mid to late 30s. So people keep passing them over.
Let's check out that team, Scotty, and how it's rounding out. You get Jake Cronenworth last time as your second baseman, who, I mean, is still pretty young, and he's obviously good for this format. So solid get there. And then you get JD Martinez as your second outfielder. Let's not forget, amazing prospect group here that Scotty has put together as well. After you took JD Martinez, we see Noah Syndergaard go, and then Nathan Eovaldi, Gabriel Moreno, one of the top catcher prospects in the game for the Toronto Blue Jays. Tyler Stevenson goes to Jesse. Dustin May, also a sneaky pick, I believe. Is that the same gentleman who took Tyler Glasnow? I think that might be. And let's see. Yeah, Tyler Glasnow and Dustin May. So
he's got an MO.
We're loading up on the Tommy John recoveries there. O'Neal Cruz goes to RJ White. Someone who's getting pretty hyped for redraft right now and should get an opportunity to play pretty early on here for the Pirates. And Liam Hendricks also goes to RJ White, one of the top closers in the game. Keibert Ruiz, who maybe I should have took him last time because I was debating taking a catcher. And I think Keibert Ruiz is going to play up pretty well in a points league. Lots of contact. We'll see if the power can get there at a major league level. But Jesse, you actually took Tyler Stevenson over Keibert Ruiz. Why is that?
Because I think that, well, it's a great question. I think that they're very comparable players. I think Stevenson's more likely to hit now than Keibert Ruiz, and I think that there is more raw power in Stevenson's bat. He just doesn't necessarily get to it as much right now. He has a pretty flat swing, puts a lot of balls on the ground. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement. He hits in a fantastic home park. He's going to be an everyday player this year. I think there's a lot of potential for growth in his game, and he makes a lot of contact that I think people have often underrated, dating back to his time as a prospect. But yeah, I mean, I think Keibert Ruiz is also a strong pick at this point because I think he does play up in points. I do question how much power he'll ultimately get to. Yes, he had a 320 ISO in AAA, but I mean, everyone did last year. And, he played in what used to be the Pacific Coast League, and AAA West is just like bandbox after bandbox after bandbox, and the pitching quality out there is just so weak. So I'm not super confident about how much power he'll get to. But yeah, if I had thought about it, I might have made that pick differently. I might have went with Ruiz instead of Stevenson because I think Ruiz is going to play up really well in points.
All right. Yeah. I think we're in agreement there as one of the, back end of the top 12 starting catchers that you could rely on this upcoming season. Again, that is Keibert Ruiz. And then after Ruiz went, Jesse, you took Tarek Skubal. We see some starting pitchers go here. Chris Bassett, Alec Bohm. Maybe he can revitalize himself with the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Lewis goes off the board. Scotty grabbing one of his boys for the brand. Joey Votto, another prospect here. Outfielder Josh Lowe with Tampa Bay. Brendan Rodgers, Franmil Reyes, and another prospect, outfielder Luis Matos with the San Francisco Giants. Now, I am on the board, and I am going to take Wilson Contreras. He is an old catcher, kind of old. I don't know. Let's see how old he is. 29 years old. So he's getting up there as a catcher. I think he's probably one of the last ones you actually want as a starter. And there are a lot of catching prospects that are coming up soon. The position's going to be good for fantasy, I think, a while here. So I'll take Wilson Contreras. What I'm going to do later on, I'll take a catcher prospect. We'll see whoever is left by the next time it swings around. And I want to take another prospect. I don't know if this guy has gone yet. Yes, he has not gone. So I'm going to take my second prospect here, and it is going to be Robert Hassel, outfielder for the Padres. Scott, is there something you want to say? I feel like
I'm not trying to blow up anybody's draft plans here, but I'm surprised you went with Wilson Contreras as opposed to a catcher that you mentioned like half an hour ago at this point.
So full transparency, Scott. I'm just worried that Dalton Varsho is going to lose catcher eligibility in Dynasty. I don't know how long he's going to, like, is he going to remain a backup catcher? Is he only going to be an outfielder? I don't know. I don't know that he's going to play 20 games at catcher every game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't guarantee that. That does appear to be the plan for now, at least. And how far can you ahead can you project any catcher, really? I will say that Varsho still being around at this point is kind of making me regret my Real Muto pick a little bit. Obviously, there's no way of knowing in round 8 or whatever it was that, come round 16, Varsho would still be there. But it does surprise me.
Well, a lot of the things Varsho provides are not as useful in points, except, the thing
At
that
bat.
is, well, the speed, yes, but the bats, the bats are like the big boon, right, in points leagues.
Yeah.
And that is a great, it's a good point. I think that I took Stevenson partly because I see a path to tons of at bats for him, because Barnhart's out there, and I think that he's going to see time at first base occasionally, and I think he's going to play a ton of catcher, and the NLDH is coming. So I think that someone like Stevenson is going to play a ton. That's why I went with him. I think Varsho is a good point. I think that he's definitely appropriate at this point, and I would not be like shocked if anyone took him. Or I think that he'd be a good pick in points at this point.
Let me catch everyone up on what's going on here. Robert Hassel, I took him to start round 16, and then Tristan McKenzie goes off the board. Edwin Diaz, another closer. Aaron Ashby, who there is a lot of hype about right now with the Milwaukee Brewers. It's kind of got this Freddie Peralta vibe, not in terms of like what you can expect from him and the way that he pitches, but the fact that we don't know if he's going to be a starter or a reliever to at least begin the season, but he's got a filthy slider there. Anthony Rendon goes in round 16. Scott, you are on the clock, but I do want to ask Jesse about Aaron Ashby. Jesse, do you think he starts the year in the rotation for the Brewers, and are you as excited about him as maybe other people are? I think James Anderson said that he's like his top pitching prospect, or if not the top guy, he's like one of them coming into the season.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure James is high on Ashby, and I'm not shocked because James does an excellent job, and he does a great job of going out on a limb on players, and he definitely has gone out on a limb on Ashby. I do not think Ashby is going to be in the rotation. We have Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, Adrian Hauser, who was pretty solid last year, Eric Lauer, who was fantastic down the stretch. I just don't see a place for Ashby to carve out a role in that rotation right now, absent an injury or just obviously very big time underperformance. My big problem with Ashby is I'm just not sure the command's there. Obviously the command was a huge problem for a long time throughout his career. And I just don't know if he has the type of command that you want out of, an elite pitching prospect. The stuff is fantastic. He has that, 97 mile an hour fastball and, fantastic breakers. He may have 3 to even 4 plus pitches, but it's unclear whether he is going to be able to, get those pitches in the zone enough and locate his spots enough to find legitimate long-term success as a starter.
After Anthony Rendon goes off the board, we see Mitch Haniger, Anthony Rizzo, and Trent Grisham. Dalton Varsho must be watching because it finally goes off the board. Jesse, I believe that's your first prospect. You go with Jordan Walker, third base prospect with the Cardinals, and then Joe Ryan, starting pitcher with the Twins, who's got the invisible fastball. He's big on the vertical approach angle, and if you haven't learned more about it, I tweeted out an article which basically really broke it down well. He's got a lower release point. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Anyway, it's the way that the ball crosses home plate, the angle at which the ball crosses home plate. So it's a high spin fastball, and it basically looks invisible, even though he only throws like 91, 92 miles per hour. So Joe Ryan, that's part of like how he does his whole thing. But he's a very interesting prospect. Going into 2022 here. RJ White takes Sixto Sanchez. Scotty, you took Mitch Haniger, so you just continue to load up on some veterans that can hopefully help you.
Yeah, that was one of those picks that I talk about screaming out at me. That was one that was, because it was clearly the last remaining bat that you could justify calling high end. And yeah, I like him more in 5x5 scoring than point scoring, but he averaged 3.1 points per game in this format last year. Certainly somebody who anybody would be happy to have starting on their team, regardless of the format. So to get him here in round 16, suddenly my 2022 line, the guys I can actually count on this year, my lineup's starting to come together. I don't think it looks half bad. Outfield of, we've talked about my pitchers before. The outfield is now Cedric Mullins, JD Martinez, Mitch Haniger. Infield, I got Joey Votto, Jake Cronenworth, Jose Ramirez, of course, with my first pick. JT Realmuto behind the plate. Still need another middle infielder. Still need a utility bat, but that's I think I'll be able to figure that out.
Francisco Alvarez goes off the board. One of those catcher prospects that I was talking about and hoping to get my hands on here. All right, let's see what else happened. Clayton Kershaw to start round 17. We don't know what's going to go on with the elbow or where he's going to pitch yet, but if he's healthy, I mean, at this point, pick 193. I don't really think there's much risk with that. Lourdes Gurriel, Nick Prado goes to Jesse Roche. Ryan Presley, another closer off the board. Francisco Alvarez, as I mentioned, and Marcus Stroman, who typically does play up better in a points league, typically gives us quality starts, not a lot of strikeouts, gets a good amount of ground balls. We'll see where their wins are at now that he's with the Chicago Cubs. But Jesse, you finally take two prospects here in Jordan Walker and Nick Prado. Tell us what you like about those guys.
Yeah, well, we've always been massive fans of Jordan Walker at Baseball Prospectus. I mean, I think we were the only publication to put him in the top 100 entering the year last year. That was in real life, the prospect team did that. I did not put him in the top 100, but I did have him close to the top 100, pretty much higher than everyone else as well, just because we believe in the bat. And, the power is otherworldly. I mean, this is the type of power bat that could develop into the next, Giancarlo Stanton, maybe. I mean, maybe not that crazy, obviously, but he had 116 max exit velocity in low A this year. He blitzed through low A and high A, showed a lot more better bat to ball ability and plate discipline than expected. I think if the hit tool approaches average or better, then we're talking about a guy who could be a, top 50 dynasty player at peak easily, and it might come with something close to 40 home runs if he fully gets that power in games, which is another big question for him because he does put a lot of balls on the ground, but I mean, man, when he gets into one, it goes. And I mean, he just has huge upside, and I'm always about gambling on upside in shallower leagues like this. Then Nick Prado, Nick Prado is going to be here very soon. They don't have much in the way in Kansas City at first base, and they've got Vinny Pasquantino as well coming up. So I mean, they gotta give Prado a look very quickly. I mean, he blitzed through AA and AAA. He hit 36 home runs last year at a 388 on base percentage. This is a power patience bat who is going to be fantastic in points leagues. The big question, though, is whether he'll be trending too closely to just a 3 true outcomes bat, which is strikeout, walk, or home run. And I think there's a chance, but I think in points he plays up big time.
Yeah, the Royals, they've got a very interesting crop of prospects coming. Obviously, Bobby Witt, Nick Prado, MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino as well. They have all these young starting pitchers. No one's really technically panned out yet, but obviously these guys are still young and they can develop. I'm going to select. I took Eduardo Rodriguez already. I felt like I needed another starting pitcher. I'm excited about what he can potentially do in Detroit. We spoke about that on last night's podcast. And I'm going to take another prospect here in Tyler Soderstrom of the Oakland A's to pair with my older Wilson Contreras here. My only question is, he plays catcher. He plays a little bit of first base. Is he going to remain a catcher? I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I just said the same thing about Dalton Varsho. So I do kind of wonder, Scott, will he remain at catcher for the A's?
In Soderstrom's case, as far away as he is and as impactful as it looks like the bat could be, you may be rooting for him not to stay at catcher. I think there's a good chance he doesn't. The A's at this point in his development, he was just at low A last year. It's a long way to go still. They're saying catcher, but there's a lot of doubt about that. And frankly, I think he's being ranked for fantasy like he won't stay at catcher, because catchers don't have a very easy projectable path to the majors, in terms of what kind of playing time are they going to get when they're there? What kind of developmental issues will they run into? Health issues could crop up. If he moves to a corner spot or first base, much more projectable path, much more likely he's going to deliver on his full offensive potential. And I think it was a great time to take him, Frank.
Frank him. I like it.
He was he was basically the last prospect I was looking at. I just drafted another Nolan Gorman with my last pick, hoping I'd get a nice double play combination between him and Volpe moving forward. But Soderstrom I would have taken with my next pick if he was still there. I think I may be done with prospects now that he's not.
All right. Well, let's catch everybody up here. After you took Gorman, we saw Huascar Ynoa, Jared Walsh, Gleyber Torres. See if he can bounce back. He's one of the most interesting players, I think, to figure out right now. Josiah Gray. And then I took Eduardo Rodriguez and Tyler Soderstrom, Tony Gonsolin, Bryson Stott, who absolutely tore up the AFL. Someone who I know the Welsh likes quite a bit. And then we see Mike Soroka, Brian Rocchio. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
All right. Just want to make sure. I hope no one else heard me. Patrick Sandoval goes to Scotty. And then we see Drew Waters, Jordan Romano, and Giovanni Gallegos go off the board. Jesse, do you know who you're going to pick? Or
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to pick a national.
All right.
Is that your team?
It's my team.
Okay.
Actually, I'm an Orioles fan as well. I mean, I'm Maryland. I'm a Maryland boy, and I grew up with the Orioles. I'm not going to give them away, give up on them. And then, as soon as the
that's kind of
Nationals
awkward,
came,
right?
yeah, it is a bit awkward. But I grew up around DC, and so my family's always been big DC area fans. And as soon as the Nationals came into town, I had to be a Nationals fan, and went to a World Series game. It was a loss, of course, because it was at home. But it was just a blast. And I think I really like Josh Bell this year. He kind of flies under the radar. His numbers don't necessarily pop, but he was just absolutely atrocious to start the year. Basically, through May 12th, he was hitting 133. Then he really turned it on toward the end of the year. He hit 287, 370, 510, or something like that with 24 home runs. He gets a hit behind, Juan Soto. He basically checks almost every box you want in a first baseman. He has big time power. He is platoon proof. He has a switch hitter, and he doesn't whiff, makes playing contact, doesn't whiff much. He has good plate discipline. In a points league, I think he plays up because of that, for that purpose. And it's just about whether or not he can lift enough, because he just puts a ton of balls on the ground. And I think if he can get somewhere even approximating what he did in 2019, where his average launch angle was 12 degrees, if he can get somewhere like that, then he really could have another massive season. I mean, he's going to be hitting behind Juan Soto. There's going to be a lot of run production opportunities for him.
All right. We have 86 people watching right now. We only have 32 likes. So help us out if you can. Smash that like button if you are currently here watching live. If you're watching this on demand afterwards, also hit the like button. We'd appreciate that. And for anyone who's passing through, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. Starting next week, we're going to go live every night doing our podcast here on the YouTube channel as well. And we're going to have one of these live stream mock drafts for you each week moving forward. So make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe. Tap the notification bell so you get notified every time we go live here on the YouTube channel. And let's catch people up. After you took Josh Bell, we see Nick York, a second base prospect with the Red Sox, go. DJ LeMahieu and Raisel Iglesias go to RJ White. So another elite.
I love the value of Iglesias here.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too.
I also probably was a little I spoke too soon when I said there wasn't another prospect I would take, because I do think Nick York's a good pick in this format. Quick story. One of my big regrets from last year was in a dynasty league where it was two separate trades, maybe about a month apart, and there were more players involved, but kind of the net effect was I traded DeGrom and Nick York and got back Aaron Nola and Justin Foscue. So I think I got the worst player on both ends of those two deals. York kind of took off after I made that trade. And, the reason why I was trading for Nola and then trading away DeGrom is because I was in contention and then I fell out of contention again. It's just one of those dynasty things that happens. But yeah, bad timing there with the York deal because he caught fire at some point last year and hit like 370 the rest of the way between two levels. Great contact skills and better power than most people gave him credit for. He is definitely a stock up kind of prospect.
After RJ took Raisel Iglesias, we see Austin Martin, a outfield, middle infield prospect for the Minnesota Twins. He came over in the Jose Barrios trade. John means business goes to Jesse Roche. Jeter Downs, man, he's an interesting one to try and figure out too, because since being traded to the Red Sox, the guy has struggled mightily. Lots of strikeouts. He's got a little bit of power and speed, but the strikeouts have been a massive issue for Jeter Downs. Jesus Sanchez to Nick Retrieve there. Then we see Jesus Luzardo, back-to-back Marlins. Nice. Cal Quantrill goes to Scotty, Alejandro Kirk, and then Aroldis Chapman, who I am very scared about this upcoming season, was not the same after the sticky stuff crackdown last season. Jesse, you go out there and grab yourself some John Means, who is only 28 years old, seemingly in the prime of his career. And now that they're pushing the left field wall out, that should help him because he is someone who typically struggles with fly balls and home runs.
It should. And, he's a guy who I really like in a points format too, because he's going to be a guy who have a nice whip because he's not going to give up a lot of walks. And, I think that he's going to give you lots of innings. And, the wins are maybe problematic with the Orioles, the win-loss ratio, which isn't great, but I think that there's a lot of upside with Means, a lot of hidden upside that people don't, often will overlook because his stuff's pretty good. His fastball has great shape. He's got a great changeup. Of course the command's there, and if the park dimensions shift, could legit help him and make him a legitimate at-home streaming option in shallower leagues. That is.
All right, so I just selected another prospect here in Marcelo Meyer, and I think I'm going to select another starting pitcher, someone I mentioned as a sleeper on our most recent podcast. Get him out of Coors Field. Hopefully it means good things for John Gray. I don't know that he's going to turn into an ace, but I would have to imagine as good as the slider is for John Gray, just getting out of Colorado, moving into Texas, bigger ballpark to pitch in, better division of pitching in terms of ballparks as well, that hopefully we can see the best version of John Gray that we have seen to this point. After Aroldis Chapman went, Anthony DeSclafani, Nelson Cruz, you're hoping, man, one more elite season-ish, two more. I don't know how much he's got left, but the guy still performs. Fell off a little bit with Tampa Bay last year, but overall, still the numbers were solid there for Nelson Cruz. And then, of course, I took Marcelo Meyer and John Gray. Jesse, in terms of just the prospects that have gone so far, is this about the range that it makes sense for Marcelo Meyer to go?
I actually think it might be a little late. I actually think prospects have been falling a bit far in this draft. I think Scott alluded to that earlier. I think, it's tempting to, try and fill your roster's spot with players who are going to be producing right away. And I think that, often you'll find prospects slip further than maybe they'll be ranked, than I have them ranked, for example. I think a big thing about all these drafts, and mocks are great practice for it, is you just need to be able to adapt and adjust because things are going to be changing in your draft room, and you need to be prepared to go off book and go off your rankings to try and take advantage of trends that are happening. And in this case, waiting on prospects would have been a great call.
All right. Well, I am looking at Emerson Hancock. I was thinking about putting him into the queue, and then I see this big injury alert. Is there some crazy injury going on, Jesse, with Emerson Hancock that I need to know about?
Not too crazy. It's
Okay.
just, typical pitching injury, with arm fatigue. And, Hancock has had injury issues ever since college. And it's the reason why he's not quite as highly regarded, I think, as he would have been, so I think there's a bit of risk with Hancock. I think Hancock's a guy who could conceivably go under Tommy John surgery at some point because it's piling up. And I obviously I can't speak to the actual structural integrity of his elbow and his arm, but there's just a lot of warning signs. And he didn't throw very many innings last year, but so I think that he's a guy to be fading in Dynasty right now.
All right. After I took John Gray, Miguel Vargas, third base prospect for the Dodgers, then Ryan McMahon, Matt Chapman, Marcell Ozuna, Chris Taylor goes to Scotty. Still trying to fill out that roster. I respect it.
I gave a big fist pump with that pick because that was the last middle infielder before just a huge drop off there. So I was fortunate to get him still. I think it's pretty likely he'll be a starting caliber player, even in a 12-team head-to-head format like this.
All right. So, yeah, Scotty's filling out the roster. We see Real Muto, Joey Votto, Jake Cronenworth, Jose Ramirez, Chris Taylor, then JD Martinez, Mitch Haniger, Cedric Mullins in the outfield. And, of course, the pitchers, Charlie Morton, Jose Barrios, Walker Buehler, Sandy Alcantara. It still hurts. I don't even want to read his name. Patrick Sandoval, and then Cal Quantrill with that SPARP eligibility here in a points league. And, of course, a ton of awesome prospects there for Scotty. What else has happened? James Wood. James Wood is interesting to say the least. I've heard the Welsh talk about him quite a bit. He's kind of got like this Aaron Judge thing going on where he's just like a massive human being. You'll see this here. 6'7", 240 pounds at 19 years old. He's an outfielder. Apparently big power with James Wood. Jason Dominguez goes, and then Kevin Biggio and Tanner Houck goes to Jesse, and Trey Mancini and Sonny Gray. Tanner Houck is another one. Michael Kopeck went, I don't know how much earlier. Obviously, Kopeck has more prospect pedigree than a Tanner Houck, but those are two guys, Jesse, who in redraft right now, they're going in a similar range. We don't necessarily know what their roles are going to be for their respective teams, a lot like Aaron Ashby, but just in terms of stuff, Tanner Houck and Michael Kopeck popping off the screen.
Yeah, I mean, Houck has just one of the craziest wiffle ball sliders that you'll see. And I really would love to see him get run in the rotation for Boston. I mean, it'd be so fun to see both him and Chris Sale basically mirror images of each other in that rotation. I don't know if it will happen. The Red Sox have filled out the rotation, through free agency already. They've got Rich Hill, Michael Wacha coming in. I have a feeling that he's going to find his way. And I think for a format like this, I mean, the SPARP idea for him is also great. Relief eligibility allows me to potentially stream him in a relief spot. I think it's a worthy gamble because of the upside is just so massive if he does get a starting role and fully takes off.
All right. Yeah, Tanner Houck, the upside is there, and you mentioned the similarities to Chris Sale. I mean, who better to learn from, right? I mean, on the same team, right. It's just, I think there's a lot of upside there with Tanner Houck. Trey Mancini goes, then RJ goes, Sonny Gray and CJ Cron. Brett Beatty, someone who I heard good things about from the AFL as well. Apparently exit velocity is just screaming off the page there with Brett Beatty, third base prospect with the New York Mets. And outfielder, George Valera, a prospect, goes to Jesse, then Colton Wong and Nate Pearson. Scotty, we are coming up close to your pick. Do you have any idea what you're going with?
Oh, I was going to take Adam Wainwright, and he just went. So less of an idea now.
Well, there's another really old pitcher there if you want to take him.
I wonder if it's the same one I'm thinking. Oh, Zach Greinke?
Yeah, I mean, that's your guy.
I think I'm going to be a liar instead and take another prospect, one who, again, I expect to break in this year.
Don't do it.
I'm surprised he's still there, Nick Lodolo.
Oh, Scott, come on. He's in my queue, man. Like, come on, are you serious?
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Like I said, you're an ant on my screen, so I promise you I'm not just taking it out of the queue. I was my rankings are in the draft room. I was going through them and adding players to my own queue. And Nick Lodolo's still there.
I like Nick Lodolo.
Sorry, Frank.
I like Nick Lodolo quite a bit. Jesse, where are you at on Nick Lodolo? There was talk that, him and Hunter Green, they're going to quote unquote compete for a rotation spot with the Reds. I don't know if they'll, break opening day with the teams, but if not, I think we could see them at some point here in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lodolo has some of the most underrated stuff in all of the minors. I mean, his stuff has taken massive leaps since college, and I don't know if many people are fully aware of it. I mean, he sits mid-90s now, and there's above average command, And, the secondaries have always played, above average, and the added velocity makes them play a little bit more. And I think that, yeah, he'll probably arrive this year. I think Hunter Green arrives this year. I'm not sure it happens right away. I have a feeling that we're not done seeing Cincinnati make lots more moves. I think they're going to maybe lean more into a rebuild. If was rumors that Luis Castillo could potentially be dealt, I think we might see something like that. I think that we could. Their rotation is massively in flux at the back too. I mean, right now, if you look at Fangraphs, their roster resource, they've got Vladimir Gutierrez and Rivers San Martin as the 4 and 5, and I mean, the likelihood of those two sticking in those rotation spots is low because there's a lot of options. Obviously, Green and Lodolo could come up there. Certainly Tony Santillan, who has a pretty good fastball slider combo, could conceivably carve out a role too. So I wouldn't necessarily count on Lodolo and Green this year, but Lodolo has massive upside, I think, if he can stay healthy.
All right, I'm double tapping prospects here myself, going with two standouts last year in the minors. Jose Miranda, third base-ish player for the Twins. I mean, he moves around a little bit. We don't really know where he's going to play defensively yet, but he was amazing offensively. And then Roansy Contreras, who was really, really good with the Pirates. He came over from the Yankees in the Jameson Taillon trade. Dealt with some injuries last year, but actually wound up making a start for the Pirates towards the end of the season. So I think there's a chance that we probably don't see him start the year with the Pirates, but if not, I think we see him pretty soon there in Pittsburgh. Matt Manning goes off the board, and Eric Lauer there with the Brewers.
I really like the Jose Miranda pick in points. Like it a lot.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day on The Athletic about Jose Miranda, and apparently, I believe they left him open to the Rule 5 draft last year, and no one picked him up. Like, he just remained with the Minnesota Twins, and they've liked him for quite some time, a combination of contact and power. And it just really never happened for him in the minors until last year. Like, everything that they were hoping he could become happened in 2021. So it's just a matter of, was it a flash in the pan, or, is this the real Jose Miranda? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Players like Miranda rarely get taken in the Rule 5 just because there's like very little defensive utility that he provides. I mean, he's going to be barely making by wherever they put him in the field.
Yeah.
It's just kind of surprising because of his age, and the contact skills were well established. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but I like the Miranda pick too.
All right. Well, woo! You guys like my picks. That's good. After I took Roansy Contreras, we see Matt Manning go off the board. Eric Lauer, Will Smith, the closer for the Atlanta Braves. Brandon Nimmo, Kyle Hendricks goes to Scotty there, hoping he can bounce back. If he does, then obviously should be pretty good in a points league, provide you some quality starts.
Should age well. I mean, he's 32 now, but yeah, I don't think he was as far off last year as his numbers suggest.
Yeah, I mean, he was bad. There was like a stretch where he provided a lot of quality starts, but the underlying numbers were like really, really bad for Hendricks. We'll see. We'll see if he can bounce back.
I don't like his, what is stuff for Kyle Hendricks. He throws 88 miles per hour, but the stuff seemed intact. I think it's just his location was a little off, and because his stuff is what it is to begin with, it led to him getting shellacked. But I think people are a little too down on him, all things considered.
I mean, he's going super late in redraft. I mean, sometimes if you're playing in a 12-team league, he'll go undrafted. Emerson Hancock, the starting pitcher prospect for the Mariners. Henry Davis, who was the first overall pick in the 2021 MLB draft. Hunter Green, starting pitcher prospect for the Reds. Starting pitcher, hopefully, he's got some relief kind of potential there for the Reds. Hopefully he can make it into starting pitcher. Guy throws like 100 miles per hour. He's ridiculous. Daniel Espino goes to Jesse Roche. Luke Voigt. That's not Lick. That's Luke Voigt. Justin Turner, Aurelvis Martinez, and Garrett Crochet. We are coming up on like 2 hours here. So I kind of want to start to wrap this thing up, and then you can find all of the results over on the site as well. But Jesse, just want to get your quick thoughts on the previous two prospects that you selected, I believe, both out of Cleveland's organization.
Yes. So George Valera, I really love George Valera. We've always been very high on him at BP. I really think that this could be a guy who has an outside shot at becoming like a plus hit, plus power guy, but I think the hit tool will play down and probably play up in like OBP leagues because he has, a very good plate discipline, patient approach. I just like he rolled through high A and double A this year. The numbers don't necessarily jump off the page, but I mean those are very difficult hitting environments where he played, and he was just utterly fantastic. I mean, in high A, he had a 55 strikeout to 55 walk ratio, and I really think that he's going to be a guy who will walk a ton, get you tons of power, and I think he's going to put up enough of an average to really, be a valuable player in points. But Daniel Espino has maybe the best slider in all of minor league baseball. I think it had the highest whiff rate of any pitch in the minors last year. I mean, it's so filthy, and he sits upper 90s too. There are certainly relief markers there, but I really think that there's in modern baseball, those two pitches can mow through an order, 2 to 3 times, and that's fine. We don't need him to throw 8 innings. If he can get me 5 Freddie Peralta-esque innings, I am happy. And I think that that's what he can be, is what we saw with Freddie Peralta. I think that is exactly what Daniel Espino could become.
All right. Awesome stuff there from 2 Cleveland prospects. Oh, I'm on the board. I'm just going to select these 2 guys. I got Alex Cobb in the queue now with the San Francisco Giants. We've been talking him up quite a bit. Excited to see what he could do out there in Oracle. They've done a great job with turning pitchers around recently, and he was actually pretty good last year with the Angels. And then I'm just going to say Craig Kimbrell because I need a relief pitcher, and with the hope that he is going to be traded. I really do think he will. I put out a poll earlier on Thursday and asking what the percentage chance is that Craig Kimbrell will be traded. 72% say yes, he will be traded. 28% say that he will not be traded. So I feel pretty good. Feel pretty good about Craig Kimbrell on the move there. We'll slowly start to wrap this thing up. Everybody, make sure you go follow Jesse on Twitter, JARoche6. That's JAROCHE6. And you can find his work over on Baseball Prospectus, his writing, his dynasty rankings, prospect rankings, does fantastic work over at Baseball Prospectus. Jesse, anything else that you'd like to promote while you are here?
Yeah, we are opening up our positional series of Baseball Prospectus right now. This was first base week, so there's a ton of fantastic stuff that's coming out of the site. I have my lengthy top 40 dynasty first base prospect rankings that are going to be maybe it's definitely over 5,000 words. It might approach 6,000 words, and I really feel bad for our editors when that actually gets sent in, which will be very soon. But that's coming out tomorrow. So there's a lot coming out on our site, but I feel like Baseball Prospectus has really put a lot of effort to try and improve its fantasy content and dynasty content, and I think that we're among the best in the industry now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe it with you doing work there, Jesse. Obviously, yeah, again, like I can't say enough the work that you do. And again, in season, putting out those boards every morning with the box scores and who's performing well in terms of top prospects, even prospects that aren't top prospects. You have just the top performers night in and night out. It really is a fantastic tool. I encourage everyone to go follow Jesse on Twitter. And Jesse, before we wrap up, do you have a prospect or two, maybe someone that you are ahead of the field on heading into 2022, or maybe someone that you're lower on just in terms of prospects this upcoming season?
Let me make this pick, and then I will tell you. Because I'm on the clock right now, and I don't know what to do.
All right, so I'm going to let you do that. Let's see what else happened here. Scotty, you took Zach Greinke. It's round 24. We'll see what he can provide.
I got my future mapped out pretty well at this point. So I'm just thinking about, okay, who can help me win this year as well, and before this big massive prospects that I drafted is ready to step in.
I love that after you took Charlie Morton, Scott, you just said, screw it, I'm going all prospects. You draft like all the great prospects, and then you came back and you drafted some older guys that can
more old guys,
help you
those old innings eating pitchers. I got another one queued up too if he makes it to me.
All right, we'll find out shortly who that player is. Jesse, you wound up with Yuli Gurriel. He's an older guy himself, but specifically in points leagues, makes a
I'm
lot of
very
contact.
much
And
happy with him in points.
for sure.
The only thing that holds me back, held me back with that is I do have 2 first basemen right now, so it's not like the best ideal roster construction, but you know, I I I just felt like pulling the trigger on him because I really do like him in these formats. All right, commission. Sorry,
It's all good. It's all
I'm
good.
trying to. It's like not letting me take a player.
Who do you want?
Oh, I wasn't up. There we go.
Oh man! After Gurriel went to you, we see Chris Paddock, Steven Strasburg coming back from. It is. What was the surgery he had, Scott? It's the one with the nerve.
Thoracic outlet.
Thoracic
syndrome.
outlet. Right?
Yeah, which
doesn't have a great track record.
it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm trying to think. There was a younger guy who came back from it recently. No worse for wear, but you usually see it with older pitchers.
Yeah,
like Strasburg.
Yep. So we'll see what Strasburg can do there. MJ Melendez, I think, a great pick. Again, one of these catchers who is set to be fantasy friendly here for years to come, hopefully. Garrett Whitlock, Mark Melanson, Josh Donaldson, Quinn Priester, starting pitcher prospect for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Jesse.
All right, yes.
Any prospects that you want to kind of give us a sneak peek at? Someone that maybe you're ahead of the field of or lower on heading into the season?
Well, I for a long time I was probably one of the Yuri Perez stands, but I'm like people have passed me on him. So the player who I've seen live that I've been maybe most impressed with lately has been Owen Casey. He's an outfield prospect for the Cubs. He was traded over from San Diego prior to the year, and he hasn't seen a lot of time in full season ball. He was I think he was a 2020 pick. 2020, believe so. Prep outfielder, big guy, big left-handed guy. He kind of looks a little like Dustin May with the red hair and that's like kind of wild. But he's a big left-handed guy, big, beautiful swing, huge power. I mean, I think he easily had the most power that I've seen at batting practice of any player that I saw in low A East last year. That included like Dustin Harris and Evan Carter and Heriberto Hernandez and just everyone. I mean, he just like jumped out for me. He is just fantastic play discipline too. I think he's going to be a massive riser, and I think he's already starting to trend that way. I know that the BP 101, he's already up to 67 in the real life list. So I'm a big fan of his. I think people are going to start to catch on because I think he's just going to destroy A-ball next year.
All right, you heard it there, Jesse. Thank you. I just say the word thank you. I think I'm like passing out here. It's so hot, it's crazy. But we thank you so much for joining us here. 2 hours, man. This is a long time. So I really do appreciate your time, man. Scotty, any closing thoughts here as we wrap up the draft?
I'm tempted to take another prospect.
Yeah, I think you need one actually.
I'm tempted to take Michael Busch because he's just such a plate discipline standout. Hopefully in line to take over at second base for the Dodgers. And I have a utility, like my bench is full. I moved all the minor leaguers to the bench. It's full. So I'm filling my utility spot here basically. But, I feel like I could just pick up, maybe there'll be an injury. I move a guy to the IL. I pick up whoever off the waiver wire to be my utility bat. I'm eyeing like Hunter Renfroe.
Scott, I appreciate how seriously you're taking this mock draft right now.
Of course. I'm going to take Busch.
You're talking
I'm
through,
going to take Busch.
You're talking through the IL and picking players up. And it's great. I love it. Yeah. Did you actually take him? Did you take my Busch? You are not. Yeah. You have too many prospects. They won't
Has it been taken yet?
I don't know.
He's available.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not responding. It'll count down. He'll be at the top of my queue, and if they don't like him, then Hunter Renfroe will be next. So
all right, well, I wish I could have
5, 4, 3. Oh, wait,
did it happen?
Yep, you know what? It looks like the clock was a little off. I got Busch.
Yeah,
there you go.
You got Busch, Michael Busch. Man, I can't believe you stole 2 people from my queue. That is. I'm not going to get over that for a while. He keeps giving me the last pick in every draft. Takes Sandy Alcantara. He takes Nick Lodolo from me. Absolutely ridiculous.
You know what I'm saying when you're an Anton? Like I got this tiny box that shows where we're talking here. And then within that tiny box, we're 3 even tinier boxes. So like,
I don't believe you. I don't believe you for 1 second.
I
Everyone,
do find it
I got a
incredibly
draft room
suspicious
open. I got
that
rankings open. I mean,
I
what do you
find
expect?
it incredibly suspicious that Frank has had the 12th pick in 3 straight drafts, randomly picked.
yeah.
I know.
Jesse, don't make any trades with Scott. Whoever you want to do in your dynasty league, Corsi league, do
I-
not
I-
trade with him.
I'm not sure if I responded to the email or not. I am interested in Justin Verlander. I'm not
He's available.
interested in giving up Jonathan India to get him, but I am
yes.
interested in him.
Well,
Do
it
not
would
do
have been Verlander plus.
I understand.
I think it was I said Verlander and Gavin Lux. So like,
Right.
and Gavin
right.
Lux is a guy who is a guy who should play up in a format like Score Sheet because he has multi-position eligibility, second base, shortstop, and outfield, and he's a lefty, so you can platoon him very well.
Yeah, I'm down on Lux. I'm down on Lux.
I get it. I get it.
I don't care how he performed last September with a 141 ISO. I traded you Lux originally. I don't know if you remember, but
Yes, I do. Yeah,
I traded you.
it was interesting.
I traded you McKenzie Gore and Gavin Lux when they were both hot shot prospects for Patrick Corbin when he was still like an ace caliber pitcher and Sonny Gray.
Yeah.
And then like Patrick Corbin like immediately fell off the face of the planet. And I'm like, how could I have given up Gore and Lux for those chumps? And then look what's happened to Gore and Lux.
It's like one of those rare lose-lose trades.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically everyone in that deal has fallen off. We'll see if Gavin Lux can bounce back now with the opportunity. But we're gonna wrap there for Jesse and Scott. I am Frank. Thank you all for watching this entire mock draft. For those that have stuck with us the entire time, we still have 73 people watching. We appreciate you. Make sure you slam that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and we will talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.